Hi, this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the animal print peyote kits, and these are exclusive kits by Beadaholique. So just so you know, when you purchase a kit from us, you'll actually get all of the components that you need. So for example, I'm going to be showing you how to do this particular leopard print peyote right here. So you'll get your needles, your smoke fire line, your clasp, and all of your beads needed to complete this bracelet. Now what you won't get that you will need is you'll need some sort of snips, a thread zap, or a pair of scissors to clip your thread, and you'll also just need a scrap bead to use as a little stopper bead. But that's it. So these are all items that you will have in your house, and you can just purchase all of this and you'll be ready to go to make your kit. Now another thing that you'll actually get when you purchase a kit is you'll get our instruction sheets, and they look like this, and this is for this particular peyote kit. You'll also receive the appropriate pattern for the kit that you have purchased. And for example, in this one, we have the leopard print, and I'm going to show you how to read this pattern and make this bracelet. So to start, I've already added a length of fire line to my needle. And go ahead and only use as much as you're comfortable working with. You're going to need to add more and tie off as we work. So don't get too caught up in trying to use one piece of thread for the entire piece. So the first step now is to add that stopper bead. So go ahead and pick up your scrap stopper bead and go ahead and just slide it all the way down. And you're going to want to leave a tail of a good 12 inches or so, because this will be what you're going to attach your clasp with at the very end. So now just take your needle and go back through, and what'll happen is it'll catch right in that little loop there. Okay? So now I'm going to show you quickly how to read your pattern. And peyote is very interesting because it has up beads and down beads, you'll notice. And here, I'll just use my sort of scissors to point to you here. So this row is all of your up beads, and this is considered row 1. But when you begin, you're going to start and you're going to pick up rows 1 and 2 simultaneously. So row 2 is these down beads that sit right in there. So as you're picking up your beads, per your particular pattern, but this one, you're going to pick up a bronze, a black, a gold, a gold, a gold, a gold, and so forth. So go ahead and we're going to pick up those first 2 rows in our pattern. And you're going to want to make sure that you have 28 beads on your thread before beginning, because that means that you've correctly picked up your particular beads. So I'm just going to do that really quick, and then I will be right back to show you the very next step. Okay, so now I have my first 2 rows on my thread, and now what's going to happen is, let me show you on the pattern over here. I'm coming out of that last black bead that's right there, and I'm going to take my thread and come around, and I'm going to start adding the 3rd row, and this is going to be that gold bead, and then I'm going to skip the 2nd column there, and I'm going to add a black bead, and then skip a column, and the bronze bead, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and take my strand here in my fingers, and just sort of hold it. And again, like I said, we're coming out that black bead, and I want to add a gold bead, so I'm going to pick up the gold bead, and I'm going to skip over the first black one, and I'm going to go into that 2nd black bead right there. And you'll see it'll just sort of sit, once I finagle it, it'll sort of sit like a little tripod right there. You see that? So now I'm coming out of that black bead, and the next bead I'm going to add is actually a black bead as well. So just pick up a black bead and skip over that first bronze bead and go into the 2nd bead there so that it will sit just below. I'll move my finger just in a second. There we go. So as you can see, it's starting to sit like a little zipper. So you'll just follow along in your pattern, and you're going to be adding your 3rd row. So I'm going to do that, and I'll show you how to turn it around at the other side here. Okay, so now you've seen that I've come back around after finishing that 3rd row, and I'm coming back out the side with my stopper bead. So now all I'm going to start to do is just weave down into the pattern. So just following along with my pattern, I need a bronze bead, so I'm just going to pick it up and just turn it around by going back through. And that's all peyote is. So you'll just be picking up your next bead and going through, and it should just sit nice and on top there. And I'll be back in just a minute to show you how to tie off and add in some new thread, as you'll need to do as you work along your bracelet. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to tie off and add more thread. And you'll just need to do this maybe a couple times throughout your bracelet. So basically, I've ended in the middle of a row here, and I just have my thread coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go underneath from the back side here, and I'm going to go underneath through and try to catch that next thread bridge that's right there. And just, there we go. So I have my needle coming up through. So I'm going to pull through, and I'm going to put my needle through the loop that's right there and create a little surgeon's knot that I'm going to tie right down there. Now I'm going to go down through this black bead that's on my work here, and you'll see that all I want to do now is I want to hide this thread. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to trace a little thread path. So I'm just going to go down through that next bead there. And you can kind of do this with whatever pattern you want. There's no specific way, but what I like to do and what I recommend you do is sort of get your thread going one way and then simply just turn it around. So it sort of creates a nice little loop in there. And you can also then just sort of hide it that way. Okay. So I have my thread coming out on the back side there, so it'll just be a little tail. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove my needle and just sort of push that aside. And I'm going to take another length of my smoke fire line, use my snips, go ahead and thread the needle. And you don't need to put a stopper bead on this particular thread because we're just going to tie it in. So again, I have my thread and I ended it here. You can see that sort of gap where it sort of drops off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back a couple of beads and I'm going to come in maybe around over here. And I'm just going to take my thread and go through. And again, you're going to want to leave just a little tail, enough to kind of hold on to. And I'm going to go through the opposite direction on the bead just below where I went in. So I'm working with those black beads right there, you can see. And now what this is going to do is this is going to create a nice little loop so that when I go back through, I'm coming right up the same way. So now I'm just going to follow that top thread path there. And I'm going to get to a bead before I add another one. I'm going to go down through that thread bridge, same as we kind of did before. And I'm going to tie a little knot to secure it. And go ahead and pull that tight. And now just continue along with that thread path. Going through too many there. There we go. And now I'm coming up through that last bead there. And now I'm ready to continue adding my rows. And now I just continue my bead weaving, just like so. So that is how you add on new thread and tie in the old pieces. And all you'll need to do is when you get to the end, and I like to do this at the very end, is just go back through and just snip off all of my extraneous tails that I've added throughout. So go ahead and finish weaving your piece, and when you're done, I'll be here to show you how to finish off the clasp. So now once you've finished weaving your entire portion of your desired length, you're going to want to make sure that you have one thread. This is my starter thread, as you can see with my stopper beads still on it, coming out this side, and the opposite end's thread coming out the other side of the peyote. And this is really important in order for your clasp to sit properly. Now, if you look back to your instruction sheet, you'll notice that we do show you how to do the clasp, and it's a very simple up and down weave, and this is the same for both sides of the clasp. And I'm going to show you how to do one side right now. So I'm going to take my tail here and just sort of flip it around so you can see the orientation of the beads. So I'm coming out of that down bead that's right there. So I'm just simply going to take my needle and I'm going to go through the bead that's right below it. And I'm going to try to catch the next bead next to it. So I am coming up. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to work my thread so that I'm coming up this particular gold bead right here. Now yours might be a different color depending on the length of your bead weaving that you've done, but just work the thread over to that position. You can either go through one bead at a time or two, depending on how tightly your beads are woven in there. But I need to get to that third bead, so I'm coming out the top there. You see where my thread is coming out? So now I'm ready to attach the clasp. Now for this particular pattern, I'm going to be using the gold beads to do the entire clasp because it just gives it a nice sleek finish. However, if you've chosen one of the other patterns, for the zebra, I recommend doing the black, for the tiger, the orange, and for the snow leopard, doing the white. But it is entirely up to you. You should have plenty of beads of each color if you'd like to vary that up for yourself. So now to attach the clasp, we're going to pick up 2 gold beads, and I'm just going to slide those all the way down. And now I'm going to take my clasp and just sort of hold it there with my fingers. And I've left it clasped to do this first side, and I'll show you why in just a second. So I go up through that first hole there, and now I'm going to pick up 2 more beads. And now I'm going to go down through the next up bead, which for me is this first bronze bead right there. And make sure that your clasp is flipped the right way. This first loop can be a little tricky just because you're trying to get it situated. And you want to make sure that you have 2 beads on either side of that loop, just like so. So now I'm going to take my needle and go down through the next bronze bead there, just one, and come up through the next bronze bead. So I'm just following that thread path going backwards. So now I have, it keeps getting flipped around there. There we go. So now I'm coming up through that second bronze bead right there. And again, I'm going to pick up 2 gold beads. Making sure your thread doesn't get all tangled. 2 gold beads. And I'm just going to go back up through that hole on the second loop there. Pick up 2 more gold beads. And go down through the next bronze bead there to create that bridge. There we go. See, now that you have 2, it's a little bit more secure. So again, just going down through the next bead. And I'm going to go up through this black bead right here. And now I'm ready to attach the third loop. 2 gold beads on my needle. Back up through. Two more gold beads. And now down through the next up bead, which on mine is gold. And you thread it down again. And up. Pick up 2 more gold beads. And you're going to want to keep working the same way. So you can see I'm working from the back forward, and I keep going around in a circular motion. That will just keep all of your threads facing, all of your loops facing the same way. So again, just following along with the pattern. And now we're coming to our final loop here. And by this point, you should be at your fourth up bead, because you're going to create that last bridge between that last one and the third one here. So it starts on the third one on this side, and it ends on the third one on this side. So if you've done this correctly, your clasp will be perfectly centered. 2 gold beads through the loop and 2 more gold beads, and then down through those 2 beads there. Now, if you like, you can turn your thread around and go back through, but I find that this is strong enough to attach for myself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just show you really quickly how to tie it off. So I like to go up through that black bead. So it's that second bead from the end there. And now you can create a little surgeon's knot going through that thread bridge, catching it, and tying a knot and pulling it tight. And then just go through that second bead going down there. And now I just turn my thread around, going up through here and up through this second bead right there. And I'm going to go up through one more, just one more. There you go. And now I'm in a position to make one more surgeon's knot. Just going to go back through there. Catching that loop. Pulling tight. And now just through that last little bead right next to it. And then I'm done. So I'm just going to remove my needle. And now you can either use your thread zap, your snips, or your scissors. I'm going to use my little thread zap here and heat it up and just zap off that tail. Okay, so you can set that aside. So now to do the other side, you're going to want to make sure that you unclasp it and make sure that it is flipped, because when you bring your 2 sides together, you want them to match. You don't want to get there and have them be the same. So you have to make sure that they are separated in the right way. And so all you'll do to do the second part of the clasp is you'll just move on, remove your stopper bead, and simply attach your clasp, because you're coming out the same way, so you'll be doing the same finishing technique for this side of the clasp. So now I finished both sides of my clasp, and my bracelet is now all finished and ready to go. So you just clip it like that, slide it in, and you're all set. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please check out all 4 of the patterns that we have for our animal print peyote. And this is an exclusive Beadaholique kit, and you can get all of these at beadaholique.com.